Hello and welcome to another modelling video. This is Alan from the McConnor Man at YouTube with another Q&A session. We'll be uploading this in a few hours, so no rush, but you can't hear that till then, so it's not a problem. 1 week ago I asked questions. This week I answer them, and we've got a bit of them, so that's really cool. We'll cut straight down. About a bit more than a month till the Gunpla Builders World Cup. I'll be doing an update on my QBLA probably next week, Monday. Stay tuned for that. Everything else content-wise is going normal and smoothly. Lots of airbrush content, reviewing lots of compressors and new airbrushes, so that should excite everybody. My throat has been a bit coarser of late, as there's been a long-term illness and increased workload, so I haven't had the chance to stop and rest, but everything is okay. Gunpla fixation, good buddy. Looking good, mate. Thank you for doing these. Cheers. Thank you very much, mate, and I'll keep doing them. Hope they're entertaining and informative, which was not much of a question. Naked Breed Band. Hi there. I'm in trouble thinning Tamiya enamels. I use Tamiya enamel thinner. It generally works well, but XF6 copper and X gold leaf doesn't seem to thin at all. The paint just clumps up. I thought it would be a bad bottle, but it works out the same on a new bottle. However, it does thin with leveling thinner. Oh, that's news to me. But that defeats its purpose, because I'd like to clean up over painted pieces. Any help is appreciated. I find metallics very difficult to airbrush in enamels. I normally use a much wider needle when I tried it. I was a large spike needle, so anything that's 0.5 or larger. But the overspray is quite terrible. You may as well be using rattle cans at that point. And if you're using the reverse wash method or something like that, Tamiya copper and Tamiya gold, I find the pigment synthetic. It's a bit strange. It's suspended in animation in the preservative and the thinner. And it's got a weird thing about rotting, clumping and becoming large lumps. It's really something that you hand paint. But if you want to airbrush, have a lot of ease airbrushing metallics, either look at the acrylic camp or the lacquer camp. I just could never get the enamel stuff to work well. I've tried it again later on with different brands, and it's just something that the pigment's very thick and it just reacts really poorly, and it's just difficult to get the atomization right. And you're saying that leveling thinner works, and that's probably something that's missing in the experimentation. But I would just swap it out and lay down all your enamels and then put down some lacquer or acrylic on top of it. That is your metallics. And generally acrylics and lacquers has a much finer pigment, so it looks more like a solid piece of metallic mass instead of all these glitter speckles that looks like some sort of strange fantasy thing. Especially with Gunpla, you want to have your metallic pigments as fine as humanly possible as we're modelling in scale. I hope that helps you out, but yeah, I'm one to not have had luck, and I just think it's a thing that people just don't airbrush unless they know a very particular formula, brand or something. Our buddy Joseph. Hello Alan. I got 4 questions. Is there any different using Mr. Metal Colour on white primer, grey primer or black? Yes, there is. Paints are generally transparent and they reflect light. When you paint a light coloured colour, such as yellow on white, the white reflects the colour and the yellow is brighter. Metallics sit on metallic black and reflect the gloss sheen back instead of the base colour back. So that gloss black is one of the shiniest surfaces that you can possibly come across and will reflect that light. So the metallic pigments will be darker but the gloss sheen will be brighter. So there is a difference. There's a few people that have painted various spoons with a metallic on top. White and grey, you'll still get good results. The sheen will be a little less, but the pigment colour will be brighter. 2. Best thinner ratio for Mr. Clear Coat for gloss, semi-gloss, flat, and the ideal PSI for using the clear coat. Generally with clear coats, when you're painting something with pigment and it's too thin, it looks transparent and it breaks up and whatnot. Clear paints do not have pigment and you cannot see it. All you can see is the sheen or lack of sheen. So generally I put more thinner and stretch it out and put it in layers for an even coat. So generally 50-50, half thinner, half clear coat, and if you don't want to have overspray and speckle and whatnot, you can afford to turn the PSI a little higher. So instead of 15 PSI, you can sneak to 17, closer to 20 PSI. Can I panel line a painted part before clear coating? Yes, you can. If it's ink, make sure you thoroughly let it dry and harden. It can look dry, and when you blast some paint on, all the ink will splash out of the panel and dirty the whole piece. So if you use a wash, allow 24 hours, especially if it's oil or enamel based. If it's a Gundam marker, you can do it immediately. I'll still let it to dry a bit to make sure that the wet Gundam marker and the wet clear coat will not weld and blend into each other. That could be bad. Can I use Mr. Mark Setter before clear coats, or should it be after? Always before. It works directly on the decal, not on the clear coats. Setter pretty much makes the decal wrinkly, and then it smooths it out and recesses it in the paint, and it makes it look like it's being painted on. As usual, thank you very much, and keep going your spectacular videos. Thank you very much, Joseph. I much appreciate your questions. It develops a lot of content and interest for this channel. Cam, it's going to be a difficult question. Cam has returned to the hobby, which a lot of us is really grateful for. So look out for any stuff on his channel, his content on Facebook and around the place. You won't be disappointed. Good afternoon, Sir Alan. I'm not a sir, I'm a mercenary. My question is regarding panel line washes with enamels. It's something I've not tried yet and was wondering, have you used the enamel lighter fluid method? What are your preferences for that style of wash? And what is the drying time before cleanup? Thanks, brother. Before you left the hobby, we generally mixed our own enamels by buying a little enamel paint and mixing it with lighter fluid, which would make it dry slower, but would give it more fluidity to flow through the panels and have a very neat, clean wash. Generally, since you've returned, there's a lot of brands that make their own panel line washes that you can use straight out of the bottle or thin further. You've got the Mr. Colour range, the Tamiya range, and the SMS range. Some other mobs do an acrylic one or a polyurethane based one. So generally I would avoid that because they only work on top of a polyurethane surface. So your MIG, your ammo, all that sort of stuff, outright avoid. It won't work on lacquer. Your enamels definitely do work on lacquer. Pretty much if your Tamiya one, it just needs to be thinned a little further. The Mr. Hobby one can be used straight out of the bottle. If you do intend to still mix and you're not happy buying a pre-mixed one, which some people are reserved about that, that's alright. You just pull it out of the bottle, use it, put it back in, no wastage. If you do mix your own, lighter fluid works wonders, and so does white spirit or gum terps. If you're short-handed or don't have any product on hand, enamel thinner or turpentine also does well. I don't mind turpentine. Enamel thinner I find to dry a little too quickly. But yeah, you can mix anything with all of those. Lighter fluid is obviously the best, but it's the most expensive. White spirit and lighter fluid is practically the same thing. I would buy a massive bottle of white spirits. I hope that helps you out, brother. Samuel, this isn't really model related, but did you do some research on cameras before when buying the new one? I did. There are some new cameras I want to set up. I do have an intention that sometime in the future I'm going to shut down the channel for a few months, upgrade all of my tech, computer, cameras, whatnot when the money's available, lighting, all that sort of stuff in the new studio space, which all of this will move sometime in the foreseeable future. So that's going to require a lot of research, setting up all that, making some test videos and make sure that it works together, have some graphics and other cool things. This case has been an emergency. This camera is in the same line as the old standard definition camera I used to have. It is a few models later. I bought it secondhand off eBay in amazing condition, swapped parts between the two, rolled it back to the standard definition mode and generally making it as seamless and similar as the previous camera. Also makes it easy for uploading to my older computer and integrating it in Movie Maker. So I've done research in a way that this camera is compatible for what I want it to do. The next camera, I'm going to have it very similar to my Twitch stream rig, where it will record me and save the video in a compatible file directly on the computer, which will just require a tad of chopping and changing and immediate upload in a less time-consuming manner, because video editing does take a long time. I find with my Twitch videos, that's all instantaneous. It goes somewhere either streamed or whatnot, and it's just very light and fluffy and easy to edit and upload. These older cameras, they're clunkier and slower, so all of that will happen one day. This is just a short-term thing to get by so we can keep making videos. And thankfully that I've got surplus videos that the channel won't be offline for a period of time when I was looking for a new camera. I almost ran out of surplus videos, but I built up a new surplus, so that's okay. Lon242, thank you for the Q&A, Alan. I hope you're doing well. I'm doing as best as I can, not too bad. Only one question this season. I know there are lots of tutorials out there, but what is your method of making rocky cliff-like textures for dioramas? So generally I'll build an elevated surface, and the surface will be tapered like a hill, so going up slowly, or it'll be cliff-like. I would generally use sculpting like medium, be it a clay or a 2-part epoxy, a very cheap one, Milliput. Adhere it to the side of the surface, get some rock-like formation pictures or inspirational pictures, and I'll sculpt it to resemble what I want. There is a lot of pre-made stuff. Some people like cutting out foam randomly and hardening it. Other people use templates or molds. I rather shape the scene to exactly how it comes out of my imagination. It's a bit more time consuming and expensive, but it works out for me. Generally, another technique which is very interesting is tearing bark off a tree, chopping it up, gluing it in position, because bark off different type of trees also resembles rocks. So breaking that down and mixing it up with a sculpted surface is also possible, and then you texture up that surface while it's still wet, and then you add a fine grit of sand or a few loose rocks here and there, some moss, whatnot, airbrush it all up. That's how I'll pretty much approach it. Though I'll make sure that I look at other reference materials and tutorials and whatnot, and make sure that the rock formation looks as realistic as possible based off natural ones, or even fantasy or anime based ones, and attempt not to make something that just suits the model and it's a bit on the artificial size. So sketch it out, plan it all out, and execute the method that you find to be the best. Mixing different methods will have a very unique looking rocky face. John, any workhorse airbrush you recommend? I currently have an Iwata Neo, but I'm told it's not made for primers and heavy base coats. I say that's bullshit. You can put that Neo is used as a workhorse by many Iwata airbrush artists. You definitely can run primer and whatnot through it. What I recommend is you buy a Hyacinth or a cheaper airbrush off eBay. Put a 0.5mm needle, a large reservoir cup, and 0.5 is just really good for blasting heavier pigmented stuff through. But generally, if you follow some of my heavy pigment video tutorials like Mr. Surfacer 500 and all that, it gives you an idea of the airbrush that you currently have. It's very possible to use your heavy pigments. If you wish to be a bit lazier and have something on the side for heavy pigments, an airbrush with a 0.5 needle and nozzle. And there are some Hyacinth airbrushes on eBay that has a very large removable reservoir cup. You buy a needle, a nozzle, 0.5, swap it out, and that is going to be painting primer like no problems. I sell that assembly in Australia, and I've had a few really good feedback. And our last question, best weathering method that you use, please. There is no one good weathering method that's going to make your model look amazing. Probably the closest one for light weathering would be paint chipping and a panel line wash. But the more weathering techniques that you overlay each other will build definition and realism. So if you do a bit of paint chipping, a bit of scratching, a bit of faded, you work weathering methods in your paint work, you do a panel wash, you do some filters, you apply pigments in various different ways, and you put layers of top coat to seal it all up, you use a bit of paint. It's going to look more interesting. The best to use out for beginners are dry brushing, panel line wash, and playing around with pigments. As soon as you master those and you try other products and methods, you just build up your repertoire, but you want multiple weathering methods on top of each other. Sludge washes are also good for changing colour, and filters. So have a bit of a play, be mindful of the drying time of each layer, and if they have to be done on a gloss surface or a matte surface, and you cover it all up with matte, and it looks quite wonderful. There was a couple of questions on my main channel. I'll just pull that up very quickly. Now, oops, that went far too far. I reviewed a product called 5 Second Fix and released it, and I've got a lot of feedback regarding it, which was really good. It was a great criticism. Generally, it's a product where it's a bit of a resin glue. It attacks two surfaces, you hit it with a UV light source, it hardens, and the two surfaces are strong. The TV commercials made it look like that the product will be indestructible, and you can do functional items like glasses and mechanical toys and whatnot. What I found was you need to have a large amounts of glue tacked to the side and not inside, which is no good for modelers, and it's so weak it snaps easily. I was very disappointed, as well as other modelers. I got 3 bits of feedback. One, the resin needs more time and a stronger UV source to harden, so it'll be stronger. So you either use a bigger torch or you put it under the sun for 12 hours. I'm skeptical, I haven't seen any evidence of that working. I will, however, try it in another video, because who knows, there will be a part 2 video. Number 2, it is useless as a glue, but it's amazing for effect parts. If you have lenses for light sources or whatnot, Gundam mono eyes, that sort of thing, you apply or fill that well with the resin, then you harden it, and it looks absolutely amazing. It sands and polishes perfectly, which I have tried sanding it. It does sand, it will polish just fine. The third, under certain circumstances, it can yellow. I don't know what degree or how it will yellow, so I'll do some blobs and allow a period of time to pass to see if that happens. I'll even put some in the sun or under heavy UV light and see if overexposure will yellow it. And if that all works, which the most popular version I've heard is using it as an effect part, and most seasoned modelers stand by it. I'm sure they would report it back if it yellows. That it's going to be ideal for effects and interesting things. One other guy says on his anime figures he applies it on the eyes as a lens and hardens that, and it gives it a super glossy look. Or if the character's crying, it's large build-ups that does tears and stuff. So we'll test all of those and we will report back. Thank you very much for watching. As always, until next time, stay tuned for further content. Check out the description section of every video. I'll put references and interesting links. Facebook, we're putting finished models, work in progresses, events, bits of information. It's sometimes a bit quiet, sometimes I'm actively posting. I've got a Patreon. If you only feel inclined to support me, which you do not have to, it's a free service. Everything is out and I'm happy to help. There's no problems throwing some poo change, $1 or $2, coffee money, favour money. That's perfectly fine. That's much appreciative. And Twitch, normally over holiday-esque periods I do Twitch stuff, but being close to the Gunpla Builders World Cup, I'll probably do a few last minute Twitch streams of me just before going to Sydney. So that will be a thing, and that will be a few overnight hectic streams. So that is something you guys will enjoy, and I might even do one tonight, so who knows. Thanks again, and catch you guys later. Peace out.